All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into this incredible moment in history, a time when, social rebellion and brand new technology just collided. And out of that collision came a sound that would pretty much define the next century. This is the story of how jazz didn't just give us new songs, it literally created the blueprint for the entire modern music industry.
And there's really no better way to set the stage than with words from the guy who actually named the era itself. F. Scott Fitzgerald just perfectly captured that chaotic, brilliant, and, contradictory spirit of the 1920s. An era like that, it was practically screaming for a new soundtrack to tell its story.
So, Section 1, a soundtrack for change. See, post-World War I America was a nation of contradictions, just ready for a whole new rhythm. Coming out of the war, the country was just buzzing with this new energy. The old world felt like it was gone, and this new, modern America was being born, especially in the cities. And yeah, it was a time of prosperity, for sure, but also some really deep social tension.
And this really lays out the culture clash of the time perfectly. On one side, you've got the old guard, quiet, traditional, rural values. And on the other, the new rebellion. We're talking urban speakeasies, flapper fashions, a whole generation that was basically looking at every single rule their parents lived by and saying, yeah, no thanks.
Now, the biggest symbol of this whole clash? Prohibition. The government makes alcohol illegal nationwide. But did it stop the party? Not a chance. All it really did was push the entire party scene underground. And this, right here, created this massive, thriving, illegal nightlife of speakeasies. And what do all these hidden clubs need? They need a soundtrack that's just as rebellious as they are.
Okay, Section 2, the New Orleans Crucible. We're going to look at how this one-of-a-kind city's cultural gumbo cooked up a whole new kind of music. And yeah, that soundtrack, it was born right there in the port city of New Orleans. See, because it was a major port, New Orleans was this incredible melting pot, a place where cultures and traditions from Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, you name it, they all just swirled together.
And that cultural mix, it created a musical one. The best way to think about it is like a recipe. These are the ingredients of jazz. You take the soul and the call and response of the blues. Then you add the syncopated, offbeat rhythms of ragtime. You blend in the unique harmonies of Creole music, and then you give it all the power and instrumentation of a big marching band. You put all that together, and what do you get? Something totally new.
And that new sound, of course, was jazz. It came right out of the Black American communities of New Orleans. And people often call it America's classical music, and for good reason. It was the first truly original American art form, a fusion of all these different traditions, all built around one central, incredible idea: improvisation. So, Section 3, technology, capture sound. This is where a local sound becomes a national phenomenon. So you gotta ask, right? How did the sound from one city, New Orleans, completely take over the entire country? Well, the answer wasn't just in the notes being played. It was in two revolutionary new technologies that could actually capture that sound and then broadcast it to the entire world.
And this timeline really shows you the sonic boom. You can see how culture and technology were just moving in lockstep. It's amazing. 1920, Prohibition kicks in, and suddenly you have this huge demand for nightclub entertainment. Then, just 2 years later, bam, the first recording by a Black New Orleans jazz band. And then by 1927, you've got the first production music library. The birth of a whole industry built on selling recorded music. It all happened so fast.
So first you had the record player, right? The phonograph. That let people actually own the music. But the real absolute game changer was the radio. It was basically a sound factory, beaming jazz directly into living rooms from coast to coast for free. Suddenly, you didn't have to be in some expensive, smoky club in New York or Chicago to hear the most exciting music on the planet. It came right to you.
And just how big was the audience for this stuff? Well, take a look at this number. 32,000. That's the estimated number of illegal speakeasies in New York City alone. Just think about that for a second. It just shows you the incredible scale of this underground world where jazz wasn't just music, it became the official language of the night.
All right, Section 4, icons of the jazz age, the artists and impresarios who defined the sound and the scene. Because this explosion of music and all these new venues, it also created our very first modern superstars. So let's talk about the people who became the actual faces and voices of this new era and how they shaped what everyone was listening to.
And here's a really strange twist of history for you. The crime bosses running all those illegal speakeasies, they ended up becoming these crucial patrons of the arts.
You had infamous gangsters, guys like Al Capone, providing steady professional paychecks for black musicians who were often shut out of the mainstream segregated venues. And as you can see from this quote, they treated them like true artists, with respect, applause, and most importantly, they paid them in full.
But the true artistic revolution, that didn't come from a club owner. It came from a pure musical genius. We're talking about a young cornet player from New Orleans, a guy who started out just playing in King Oliver's band. But he would go on to completely rewrite the rules of jazz. His name, of course, was Louis Armstrong.
I mean, what Armstrong did was nothing short of revolutionary. First, he basically invented the modern solo. Before him, jazz was all about the group playing together. He stepped out front and made the individual the star. Second, he started improvising over the song's chords, not just the melody. That was a huge leap in musical complexity. And third, he turned his voice into an instrument, popularizing scat singing. He just changed everything.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Section 5, the enduring echo. This is all about how the jazz age created the very blueprint for modern pop culture. Because the legacy of this explosive time, it's so much bigger than just one genre of music. The jazz age didn't just invent a new sound, it invented a whole new way of making, selling, and listening to music. A way that, honestly, we're still using today.
I mean, really, think about it for a second. You have a star performer. Their music is captured on a record. That record gets broadcast on the radio, and that creates a massive national audience. Does that sound familiar? It should. That is the blueprint. This era literally established the foundation of the music industry as we know it. But you know what? There is one final, really fascinating echo from this time that connects directly to our world right now. And it has everything to do with those very first kind of scratchy recordings that were made 100 years ago. See, for decades, the copyright laws around these really old recordings were, well, they were a complete mess. But now, thanks to the Music Modernization Act, those very first recordings, the ones made right at the dawn of the jazz age, are finally entering the public domain, which means they don't belong to some record company anymore. They belong to all of us.
And that leaves us with a really cool final thought. Now that these century-old sounds are totally free for anyone to use, to sample, to remix, to share, what happens next? What forgotten voices and lost melodies are we about to rediscover and bring back to life for a whole new generation? I mean, just imagine, what kind of new music is going to be born from the oldest recorded sounds in American history?